Hi. I've had numerous friends watching me do various modifications to my, well, basically my carry pistol. It's a Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm. This is the version 1, not the version 2. And people have said, well, I see you making little changes here, but really some people don't quite understand why I made the changes or what I did. So I thought I'd do a video explaining what I've done. If you're not interested, then don't watch. If you are interested, hopefully the video will be interesting enough to inform you. Alright, everything I got going here. Gods, gun, and coffee. I'm ready to go. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. So, here's the original. This is what the original M&P 9mm version 1 looks like, okay? It's just standard. I normally carry with the actual 7-round mag, not the 8-round mag. It's a little bit easier to work with that way. Pay no attention to the figures walking around in the back. That's my wife coming home from going to a Bible study. And I'll try as little as possible to let myself get distracted. But I'll take a second right here and say, hey, sweetheart, welcome home. I love you. Love you too. Okay, so back to where we were. This is just a standard M&P 9mm version 1. Things that are great about it: it's concealable, it's reliable, it is accurate. Downsides to it: only having a 3.1-inch barrel. You can have a little bit of muzzle flip when you're shooting because there's not a whole lot of weight to it compared to the kick of a 9mm pistol. You've also got to deal with a remarkable, I'm going to just show you really quick, this thing has been cleared. No magazine in place. Cleared. Alright, safety's off so I can work with it. This trigger pull, mass compliant, is 10 pounds plus to pull this trigger. It's got a fair amount. I'll do it this side, you can see what I'm doing. That's tough to do with your hand like that. There we go, okay? So that's kind of tough. In addition to that, if I do this, reset, the reset of the trigger is way out here to get to it. Alright, so there's a lot of travel on the trigger, and it's a heavy trigger to pull, being 10 pounds. But quite frankly, any gun you buy brand new in Massachusetts is going to be just as difficult, 10-pound pull. That's what Massachusetts wants. Interestingly, once you actually buy it, you can change it at home without breaking the law. We'll be getting into that. So, this is what the actual stock 9mm version 1 looks like. Okay? Very affordable. You can get it for $250 depending on where you go. Okay? So that being said, the only thing I did was I colorized the front trigger a bit of an orange, if you can see close to where my eyeball is. If I do this, maybe you can see it a little better. The front sight is orange, back is still the, I made green. They come standard as, or yellow, they come as white. 3 dots in a row. I found it easier to colorize them, and it makes the front sight a little easier to acquire my target and keep in mind where I'm aiming the thing. So, that being said, let's talk about now this. This is my carry pistol. The other one was, this is my, yeah, in case you're wondering, hey, how do you change so fast? I got 2. This is my carry, this is my backup, okay? So, what have I done to this? Let's start with one of the first things I did, which was putting on a Streamlite TLR-6. It's laser and light combo. So there's no automatic setting. I like having control of when it comes on. It's easy enough to do. Now I have the laser on. If I tap both buttons together, it changes to both light and laser. If I tap it again, now I only have light. Tap it again, it's back to just the laser, which works really kind of cool, okay? There's a camera around here somewhere. There we go, okay? So there's the light. A single tap on one side turns the whole thing off, which I typically would like to use the range that way. I don't want to waste the batteries. But it's nice because the battery compartment is on the outside. I don't have to take off this clamshell or unmount it from the trigger guard in order to swap out the batteries, so I don't lose the accuracy or the alignment, okay? So, next thing I did, a very simple thing. If you notice, if I just put in a regular 7-round magazine, I don't want to use the 8-round magazine that it comes with. It's just too big and hard to conceal. This leaves no place for my 4th finger. 3-fingered shooting it's already hard to control this thing as it is with the kick because you have a small pistol, small grip. It's easy for the kick to make this happen a lot. So I swapped out the base plate that comes with the magazine with a fixer, F-I-X-X-E-R. Let's give it a comparison. There's the mag well, and the base plate that comes on the magazine basically looks like this and just barely fills the space in. That's not enough for my fourth finger. So I take this off the magazine and I swap it out with this fixer extension which fits on the base plate. Now my looks like this. Now I've got a fourth finger grip. Well, that's great, except this thing sticks out so much it was actually making a bump on my concealed carry technique. So I took the to a bandsaw, sawed off this part right here. I'll show you a little closer here. I sawed off this part with a bandsaw, cutting that off, leaving myself with something that looks more like this instead of this. Okay? But this extension gives me the 1/4 inch needed for my fourth finger. Now I have a full 4-finger grip and it works great. Okay? Next thing I did, sights. I wanted to have sights that were more useful, easier to sight my picture with. Not to mention, evening, if it's dark or somewhere I get confronted, you can't always see what you're doing. Maybe you have time to turn your laser on. Maybe you're not going to have time to turn the laser on. Maybe the batteries are going to die in the laser while you're trying to defend yourself. So I installed Truglo fiber-optic tritium sights. These things are bright in the daytime because of the ports on the top that allow the light in. I've got the old dual color thing going again, yellow in the front. I'm sorry, when I call it front, it's the part facing you, that's yellow, which are the rear sights, and the front sight is actually green. Helps it stand out a little more. They also have a tritium insert, so at nighttime, they light up like LEDs. I can see these things in a completely black room. It's really kind of cool. So these I put on myself with a sight pusher tool. The sight pusher tool cost half of the labor involved at an armorer or a gunsmith shop that would have charged to install the sights. So I bought the sights on Amazon for roughly 3/4 the price that the armorer or gunsmith shop would have charged, and then the tool required to install the sights cost half of what the labor would have cost at the store. So I saved a fair amount of money installing these myself. Time spent, half an hour. Okay? It wasn't difficult to do. So that being said, another thing I did, I put a little plug in the back of this magazine well, which is actually wide open on the M&P 9mm. There's just an opening back here. I didn't like that. I wanted it covered. If you're using the 8-round mag, the extension covers that. But for some reason, on the 7-round mag, there's no extension there. So what I did is I put a plug that keeps stuff from accumulating inside there, and it just made it look a little more cosmetic. Just again, that was a cosmetic thing. The sights, functional. Obviously the laser, functional. Let's go a step further. I might have mentioned earlier, hopefully I did. I want to make sure this is also clear, and it is. One of the other problems with this pistol, like I mentioned, is difficult controlling recoil when you have a small grip compared to the amount of kick coming back. And the recoil spring that comes in here only handles so much poundage, so much wear and tear, and it basically a lot of times allows the slide when going back from the actual recoil to hit as far back as it can go and slam into the back of your receiver or the frame, causing more kickback, more muzzle flip. So I swapped out the recoil spring with, let me put this over here so I can get to it faster, a DPM recoil spring. Comes with 2 different springs you can put in, but it's a 3-way spring that actually, if I make sure I clear this, here we go, give you a comparison. You're not going to see much of a visual difference. This is the new one, this is the old one. But the difference in handling at the range, for example, is substantial. My double taps have become far faster and more accurate. I've got less muzzle flip, which means I can recover faster to shoot more rounds off if I have to. It's just increased overall accuracy. And because the recoil spring is taking more of the impact of the recoil, I've got less wear and tear on the slide. My block racks over here which control where the slide actually goes, less wear and tear on the pistol. Okay, so that was definitely a plus. Now, a big thing that I did, which I did not do myself but paid for someone to do it, was changing the springs and sear assembly for my trigger. Starts out with, like I mentioned, 10-pound pull, very difficult to pull. So I went someplace, if anybody asks, let me know, I'll tell you where you can go. This place actually was able to swap out the springs in the trigger, attached to the trigger. He changed the spring that fits behind the plunger up in here of the receiver, because if you keep how this thing works, if I pull this trigger, you can see a little piece of metal right over here is going to move. That moves back. See, moving away from my finger is going that direction. That piece of metal goes back when I pull the trigger, and it pushes up on this plunger right over here, which allows the striker assembly to move forward. The pin comes out, fires the round off. It's part of the mechanism for the firing. So he polished all those parts. He polished the arm. He polished this part here, which moves back along with the arm right here. You can see it moving. He polished all that, polished the plunger, rounded off the edges a bit so it's smoother, replaced the springs, which requires taking off the rear sight to be able to pull that plunger out from the top. You can't take it out from the bottom. But he did so while retaining the original trigger. I don't have that goofy colored aluminum trigger in here. I've got what they put in here, and it's nice and safe. It feels great on the fingers, got a nice curve to it. And if you happen to like the way the shield trigger works, where you can't pull from back here, you've got to pull from here. That releases the mechanism up in here that locks it, and then the whole thing can go back. So that was all kept together. So those are some of the things that I've actually changed. Oh, I also, just for cosmetic purposes and I guess inspirational purposes, swapped out the rear plate on my slide to something a little more personal. That one happens to have a Trojan helmet, not Trojan, Greek, and there's a phrase underneath. It's in Greek, it's molon labe, and that happens to mean come and take them. Where does that come from? Well, if you ever watched 300, or you've watched a movie about King Leonidas with his 300 Spartans fighting back the Persian army at the hot gates before they could invade the lower half of Greece, they were told, Spartans, lower your weapons. And King Leonidas' quoted as having said, molon labe, which is basically a defiant way of saying, come and take them. So I'm a big proponent of Second Amendment, molon labe. So those are the things that I changed on my pistol. I don't think I've overlooked anything at this point to make this thing easier to use, safer to use, more accurate to use. And if you take care of your gun, it'll take care of you. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Any questions, feel free to contact me. Hey, God bless.